By 1992, all the Japanese automakers were throwing their hands in the growing North American luxury market. No longer was it dominated strictly by Europeans or Cadillacs, and somewhere in between the Maxima and the Legend, a new luxury sedan was being thrown into the mix. Meet the Diamante. No, I meant the car. The car! By Mitsubishi. That's a Lancer. That's an Eclipse. That's also a Lancer. You know, Mitsubishi made other cars. This is the Diamante. Now sit back and let me tell you about it. The North American Diamante went on sale in spring of '91 for the '92 model year. Now there are many different versions of the Diamante internationally, but for the purposes of this video, we'll focus on the North American version. For '92, the Diamante arrives in the form of a 4-door hardtop, which means it has frameless windows, and in my opinion, that always gives a little bit more of a classier look. The Diamante was part of a growing luxury segment niche known as near luxury, and included vehicles like the Nissan Maxima and the Acura Vigor. Initially there were 2 trim levels and 2 engines. There was the base model, which starting in '93 would become known as the ES trim, and it was powered by a single overhead cam 12-valve V6 rated at 175 horsepower. Base ES models were still decently well equipped with power locks, windows, mirrors, and 4-wheel disc brakes as standard. ABS, cruise control, alloy wheels, and a sunroof were options. The upper-level Diamante trim, the Diamante LS, uses a 24-valve dual overhead cam engine, and it's rated at 202 horsepower. For '92, the LS model adds ABS, cruise control, an upgraded head unit, heated mirrors, alloy wheels, and seat position memory as standard. Leather seats and a sunroof were optional. The LS also adds an electronically controlled variable speed power steering system as standard, and you could get an electronically controlled suspension damping system as well. All North American Diamantes are front-wheel drive and use automatic transmissions. Now the electronically controlled suspension damping was part of an option package called Euro handling, and this package also gave you Mitsubishi's TCL traction and trace control. This system was pretty advanced for its time. Just about everyone had traction control by the '90s, but Mitsubishi's trace control reduced engine power in corners, helping to reduce understeer and allow for tighter lines. Kinda neat for its time, and if you don't want the computer interfering, you can simply turn it off with the flick of a switch. I wish it was still that simple to turn off driver's aids in modern cars. That's actually a lot of technology for an early '90s car. And part of Mitsubishi's strategy was to achieve luxury status through the use of new and innovative technology. Looking back now, the Diamante might have been a little ahead of its time. The front-end styling of the Diamante gives me Oldsmobile 98 vibes, and some journalists have also compared it to BMW front ends as well. Either way, I think it looks good from any angle, and is nice inside as well, especially if you have the leather package. A single slab of fairly convincing looking wood grain runs horizontally along the passenger side of the dash, and the radio and shifter is trimmed in wood grain as well. I like the horizontal lines of the dash. The analog gauges are of a 3-dial design and are pretty standard for the time. They fit in well enough with most of the competition and have plenty of indicators and LED lights to keep you entertained. This interior does have a few flaws though. The steering wheel is kinda ugly, and these steering wheel mounted controls are terrible, unless you drive with your hands at 6 o'clock. And look at where they put the seat memory buttons. On the roof? I don't even know what to say about that. That's bizarre. The seat adjustment buttons are in the normal place. Why they put these up here, I'll never know. I also would have preferred knobs for the fan speed and temperature controls on the automatic climate control system. Wheel controls are supposed to be used when there's no room for something else, like on the side of a Discman. Overall though, I do like this interior. It holds up well against a Vigor or a Maxima, and I think it's quite a bit nicer than an equivalent year 929. There were a few option changes for the '93 model year. Cruise control is now standard on both models, and leather is standard on the LS, as is keyless entry and ABS. They also tore a page out of Infinity's book and added an analog clock on the LS model. Well, that seals it. It's a true luxury car now. Also for '93, a station wagon model became available, offering a little class to the '90s wagon market. It actually makes a pretty good looking wagon, I think. Wagon models all use the base trim single overhead cam engine. The interior is standard cloth, but it can be optioned up to leather, and ABS remains an option for the 4-wheel disc brake system as well. Seats do fold down in a 60/40 manner. For 1994, the Diamante gets an updated trunk lid and taillights, and a revised, better looking steering wheel. Unfortunately though, they left the controls in the same 6 o'clock position. Seriously, whose idea was it to put these here? B-Rad G?
You validate parking?
They've also added a passenger airbag, which is good from a safety perspective, but unfortunately it means we lose most of that horizontal wood grain, so the analog clock has to work overtime now to maintain that higher end look. Alloy wheels is now standard on all models. The first-gen Diamante never really caught on with the American market though, and by 1995 the base model ES was demoted to fleet sales only. Even worse, by 96 the wagon was gone, and now all Diamantes were fleet only.
I have grown weary of bearing this dishonor.
That's unfortunate, and it means there aren't too many decent condition first-gen Diamantes left in the used market, but if you drive one, you'll surely be unique. Some journalists complained that it wasn't as much fun to drive as some of its competitors, perhaps a result of using McPherson's strut over double wishbone suspension. Car and Driver complained that the variable power steering felt fake at times, and the trace control system was a gimmick. They disliked the computer deciding how fast they could take a corner. I had to laugh at that a little because I can't imagine them saying that today. I guess the Mitsubishi Diamante really was ahead of its time. Maybe too ahead of its time for its own good. Yeah, interesting looking Lancer bro, but this is a luxury car show. First of all, you let a Datsun in. Second of all, this isn't a Lancer, it's a Diamante. Diamond what? A Diamante. Basically, it's an extended length Galant. Oh, come on. If you haven't heard of the Diamante, surely you've heard of the Galant. Is that a Lancer trim level, or? Oh, forget it. After a rather disappointing first-generation performance in America that ended with a demotion to fleet sales, the second-gen Diamante re-entered the US retail sales market with higher aspirations for 1997. This new Australian-built Diamante was priced to compete with the Acura TL and the Lexus ES. The front-end styling still has a split grille, and to me feels like a very natural evolution from the original front-end. The rear of the second-gen, however, looks quite different, and our boy John Davis found these new taillights quite risque.
And no one can call these taillights conservative.
The taillights look alright, but I like the JDM ones better. Overall, I do think this Diamante is still good looking from the outside, but it doesn't quite look as premium. There's been some cost cutting, and that's evident in the cheaper looking window trim and reduction in chrome. The interior doesn't feel particularly premium either. There's nothing too wrong with it, I guess, but it's just very forgettable. It's got that typical late 90s Fisher-Price cheap rounded edged plastic look that I really don't like. They did borrow a few Lexus things for this interior, however, like the look of the new gauges and this cruise control stock. These brightly lit Lexus-like electroluminescent gauges were only on the LS trim, however. ES trims came with more conventional style 90s gauges. The steering wheel mounted radio buttons remain at 6 o'clock.
Traffic, looking for my chapstick, feeling kinda car sick. There's a Ford Maverick.
They did move the seat memory controls at least. They're now on the door where they belong. The climate control system no longer uses wheels, and it has a pictograph display screen similar to what you'll find in the 3000 GT. It doesn't look quite as cool as the one in the 3000 GT though. It seems like this one is a bit of a cost-cut version. There are a few more luxury options this time. Even base ES models now feature 7-way power seats, a security system, and rear climate vents. The LS trim adds leather, faux wood grain, an upgraded sound system, and fog lights. It does not add a dual overhead cam engine anymore though, as both models now use a single overhead cam 3.5-liter V6 rated at 210 horsepower. Also missing on the LS trim for 97 was standard ABS, keyless entry, or a sunroof. If you wanted such luxuries, you had to purchase additional option packages. The luxury convenience package added ABS and keyless entry, along with an auto-dimming rearview mirror, a further upgraded 8-speaker sound system, and an integrated rear child seat. Now that's something I've never seen before. A luxury appearance package adds the sunroof along with the HomeLink system, wheel locks, and floor mats. If you ask me, most of that should be standard on the premium trim of a luxury car, even in the 90s, and by the time you add those packages onto the base LS trim price, you are approaching Lexus price point territory, and at that point you probably should have bought an ES. The Lexus ES, not the ES trim. I'm assuming consumers echoed my disappointment with the option package greed on the 97 Diamante because Mitsubishi quickly tried to backtrack in 98 by adding ABS and keyless entry as standard on all models, and the sunroof is standard on the LS. The LS trim, not the Lexus. Yeah, you get it. But then for 99, they decided to fiddle with it again, removing trim levels altogether for that model year. I wish I could find a 99 brochure to see exactly what that model year came with and what was optional, but even finding getting pictures of early second-gen Diamantes is difficult. From what little information I could find, apparently ABS and keyless entry did remain as standard, and a cold weather option package was introduced that added traction control and heated front seats. In 2000, they went back to ES and LS trims, so whatever weird experiment they were trying in 99, it failed. Seriously, who was in charge of US marketing for Mitsubishi in the 90s anyway? ES models now came standard with a CD player, and fog lights, heated mirrors, heated seats, and traction control was combined into a new all-weather option package. It's worth noting that on Japanese models, technology was still a big part of the Diamante. On the JDM Diamante, that included things like a satellite navigation system, a heads-up display, and even a laser-guided cruise and lane-keeping assist system. In the 90s. That's a solid decade before features like that were becoming common out here. But Mitsubishi didn't bring any of those features over to their export models. Only they had known what the future of American luxury cars would look like. I'm not sure if that would have helped sales, to be honest, since I don't know if Americans were quite ready for stuff like that in the 90s, but once again, the Diamante, well, the JDM Diamante at least, was way ahead of its time. It's also worth noting that second-gen Diamantes, at least all the model years we've covered so far, were not sold in Canada. Not surprising, since Diamante sales were so low, it probably wasn't worth the paperwork for the extra 9 cars they might have sold here. 2002 was the rather tardy mid-model refresh. The updated front end still has a split grille, but it's now split by the hood, which extends down to the bumper in the center. Although it looks like it might, the grille still doesn't lift with the hood though. The revised rear end had new taillights that no longer extended onto the trunk lid and were trimmed in chrome, as was the license plate cutout, which now also housed the reverse lights. It doesn't seem like they did too much to the interior though, and from the limited pictures of it I can find online, it seems mostly unchanged, with gangster positioned audio controls and a Lexus cruise control stock. They also added a new sportier trim variant for O2, the Diamante VRX. The VRX trim got unique 16-inch wheels, a black mesh grille, a body kit with a large spoiler, and a stiffer sport tune suspension. Inside there are leather VRX embossed sport seats, silver trim accents, and white faced gauges. The engine did have a 5 horsepower bump compared to the other models, but that's only because at some point the other trims were reduced to 205 horsepower, I think because of emissions. Either way, at 210 horsepower, the VRX makes a whopping 8 more horsepower than the original 92 LS model. Well, that's a little lame to be honest, but they can still salvage this. The VRX model is the perfect opportunity to give North America a manual transmission. Okay, well, what are they even doing at Mitsubishi North America? In 2004, there was another refresh. I'm not sure why. Okay, well, let's see what you got. So the rear looks like they just cost cut out the chrome trim, not too much different there. And on the front, oh, we're just using the Lancer front end now, I guess. No Lancers! But this isn't a Lancer, it's a Diamante. You know, I'm not even sure I believe that at this point. Inside, the climate controls are now just 3 knobs, like you would find in a Civic. Or a Lancer. And for some reason they decided to sell the Diamante in Canada again, just for 2004. I don't know why. We didn't really want it. But 2004 would be the last model year for the Diamante, as it was finally discontinued due to low sales.
Hi, I'm just looking for a dealer. I want to buy a Lancer. Hello? Where the fuck are all your dealers?